everyone. Can everyone hear me out there? I was hoping somebody would chat in and say yes.
Yep.
All right. Fabulous. So let's go ahead and get started. I hope you're all here for a sneak peek at what's changing with the finance upgrade, which is coming this weekend. For those of you that don't know my voice, which I can't imagine how you wouldn't, I'm Jackie Treschel. I'm on the Connect Carolina Change Management team, and I'll be giving the presentation today and walking you through what's changing. But as much as I can do all that, I know you're going to have questions that I'm not able to answer. So I have some subject matter experts in the room with me today. I have Becky Arnold, who I'm quite sure everybody knows. And I have Nicole Shebeck. So when you have budgeting questions, she's here for that. And I have Krishna Bhimareddy for all those procurement questions. Also in the room with me today is Chris Minner. He's going to be our moderator for the session. So let's talk about how it's going to work. So the format, as usual, is we're going to do a presentation and then follow that with a question and answer session. But you don't have to wait to ask your question. If a question comes up during the presentation, you can use the chat window to ask that question, and we'll keep track of it, and we'll answer them in the order we received them at the end of the presentation. One thing that we've done in this presentation is indicated whether there's new functionality or if it's just a look and feel change. Some of the changes are purely cosmetic. I mean, some of it is really just similar to putting on makeup in the morning, and it just looks different than it did before, but it works exactly the same. So you'll see those changes, and I'll call those out as look and feel changes, and they have the green box around them. And anytime you see an orange box, it indicates new functionality, or it just works different than it does in the current system today. In case you have to jump off today, before we finish, we are recording this webinar, and it will be posted at ccinfo.unc.edu/fin92upgrade. We'll also have a slider up for it on the homepage of CCInfo as well. So let's jump in. The first thing I want to talk about is the least fun of all of it, but I want to make sure to reiterate that everybody knows that the Connect Carolina Finance and HR Payroll are both going down at noon on Friday so that we can start the finance upgrade. This is a little different than we typically do, but we have not upgraded finance since we went live on October 1st, 2014. So there's a lot of pieces that have to go into this upgrade. So we are having to take the system down during working hours. And so we just tell your friends, make sure everybody knows to do non-Connect Carolina work in the finance and HR payroll side of Connect Carolina afternoon on Friday. One difference is because it is the end of the semester and faculty are entering grades, students looking at grades, that sort of thing, the student administration pages are going to remain available until 10 p.m. on Saturday night, and they'll be down overnight until 8 a.m. Sunday morning. And that's just so that it has to come down because the system is integrated and there is work that has to be done. But we were able to minimize that so that faculty and anybody that's entering grades could do that work without really interfering. All right, so let's get started. We're going to sort of pull back the curtain here and look at some of these Connect Carolina Finance pages, and we're going to look at what looks different and what works different with the upgrade. So the first thing I want to talk about is we've tested this. We've done a lot of testing. The project team has been working on testing since late July. We brought in central office folks to come in and test their parts. We had campus staff in to test their parts. And these are some of the comments that you see here that we got from campus folks when they came in to test, that really there are differences, but it works the same. Unlike in 2014 when we went live with Connect Carolina, and it was a whole new system and it looked completely different from the previous system. You guys have years of experience under your belt now using Connect Carolina. And so a lot of what's going on with this upgrade is a little bit more cosmetic on the front end. There's a lot of stuff going on the back end that are the upgrade part of it. So there are changes, but it shouldn't be sort of like October 1st, 2014 was for anybody that was here and logging in for that first time. It was quite a culture shock for that. But this won't be that big of a culture shock when you log in on Monday morning. So the first thing I'm going to talk about in terms of screens and things that look different is we've expanded the Finance Work Center. So currently on the left side of the screen is what the Finance Work Center looks like now. It's called the FS Work Center in Connect Carolina. And it really hasn't been touched since before go live. I don't think anything's been done to it since before go live. And, that was some folks on campus were trained with using the Work Center. Some were not. And so we're trying to help you move to being able to find everything you need in one place. There are some more look and feel changes to Connect Carolina as a whole that are coming in the future. And so this will make that transition a little bit easier with that. So on the right side of the screen, you see the upgraded Work Center. And now it's moved to the left because that's the only thing we're looking at here. I do want to call out the top section. We've taken and bundled the most used links on the finance side and put them in one folder at the top of the Finance Work Center and called it UNC Favorites. So this is when you log in, you can go to Finance and Finance Work Center, and you can have access to a lot of the work that you need to do on the finance side from that Work Center. Another good thing about using the Work Center is that what happens if you've ever been in the HR Work Center on the other side of the system, or even the Student Work Center, the Work Center stays up on the left side of your screen. So you can have all those links accessible on the left side of your screen while you're working in finance pages on the right side of the screen. And so you can easily go back and forth to other pages and that sort of thing. The UNC favorites, this is not to be confused with your favorites. If you have favorite pages saved in the system, they will still be there after the upgrade. So when you go home on Friday and you come back on Monday morning and log in, any favorites that you previously had saved will be in the new system. You will still see them in there. This UNC favorites is just the collection of the ones that are used the most often. All right, so the next thing, this is a pretty pervasive change throughout the system, but Supplier is the new vendor. So all of the finance pages in Connect Carolina where vendor was used before are now called Supplier. This is a system change. It's a software. It's a label change, basically, is all that it is. So I mention that only because when you're in these pages all the time, and you'll see when we get into some of the voucher pages and the requisitions, they look a certain way, and you know what to do with them because you see them all the time and that sort of thing. But then when one word changed, it suddenly kind of throws you off because it's like, wait, that doesn't start with a V. And, I know even when I was looking at some of these pages, I was like, what the heck is Supplier? Even though I knew that vendor is Supplier. So don't let it trip you up. Just be prepared for anywhere that you saw vendor on the pages in Connect Carolina, you'll now see Supplier. I say all that. And then I'm going to say that although the system on those pages is calling it Supplier, there are a lot of other pieces in Connect Carolina, such as queries and attachment label names, that sort of thing, that are named already, and we're not going to go back and change all of those to say Supplier. So if there's a query that you run that's NC underscore vendor underscore, I'm sure there's more words than that. It will still be NC underscore vendor. It's not going to change. Your attachment labels are still going to say vendor. They're not going to say supplier. VISP, anybody that uses VISP, it's not going to be called CISP. It's still going to be the vendor invoice submission page. So just know that those two terms will be interchangeable in the system even, but also on campus. The central offices are not going to change all of their policies and all of their procedures to say vendor. So it's just something to be aware of, that you'll see supplier on most of the pages in finance, but you're also going to have a vendor thrown in there as well. All right, so moving on, let's talk about the campus voucher. The big thing with the campus voucher page is that while it does look different, it does work the same. And so this is one of the few screens that I'm going to show you the before, so what you see today, and then we're going to talk about the after, because it's a fair amount different, actually. So this is the current page. Anybody that works with vouchers knows this page well. This is what that page looks like. You see the buttons on the page, you know where everything is. Down in the middle section, there's the copy from template kind of over on the right. That was the new feature from last year that was added into the system. The new page, the upgraded page, looks like this. It's a little more spread out. I mentioned supplier ID in there. So you see that right here on this page. That's, it used to say vendor ID, now it's supplier ID. Something else I want to call your attention to on that page is all of these buttons that are down in the row. So there's 5 buttons there. Those buttons, save one, all exist on the current page. So they all work exactly the same as they do today. They're just in different places. Basically they're in a row here, whereas they were sort of nestled under their function before, but now they're all in a row. I said there was one that was new. There's save for later. So I know when I was entering vouchers, I'd be halfway through a voucher and, I'd have to stop and do something. Well, that meant I really had to abandon it and go do it, because it could be as much as 2 hours before I got back to entering that voucher. So this new functionality doesn't drive anything in the system, and it will let you save the voucher for later and come back to it without having the valid chart field string in there. So if you're, again, in the middle of doing something and, you need to verify the chart field string for that voucher, you can save it and not have to scrap it and start over. So that's a nice feature, especially if you're doing a lot of vouchers, to have that option. The next thing, and I know this is kind of hard to see dealing with the screens and whatnot, is in the current system, when the supplier's name or the vendor's name is up on the screen, you see the address that you're working with right there. In the new system, it's a hover. And so all you have to do is hover over the supplier's name on the screen to see their location information. So here's an example of what that looks like. Once you've hovered, it pops up in a new window to see that. And then you can just roll away and click on the page and it will go back away. So if you are, if you're working with a vendor that has multiple locations, you can hover over that just to make sure that you're working with the right one. So something else, going back to that copying from a template, in the current system, the way it works is when you tell the system to create a template for your voucher, on the same screen, you have the option to label the template right there on the screen. In the new system, there's a link up on the top right side, and you have to click that template link in order to save the voucher. And this is what pops up. So you have the template ID and the description. So the fields work the same. It's just a different way to get to them. And that's it for vouchers. Again, one thing that I should have mentioned at the beginning, and I just want to mention now because I didn't, is that there are a lot of changes coming on. We can't possibly tell you every single thing that's changing. So when you log in on Monday, you may see something and say, wait, they didn't tell me about that. Just know that it's not a bug. It's not something different, or even if it's a location thing. These are the most frequently mentioned things, the things that we think, you need to know about to be able to continue doing your work. It's not all of the changes because we'd be here for hours. And I know nobody wants to listen to me for hours on it. I know this. Okay, so we're going to move into purchasing. And this is the Create Requisition page. So this is the ePro Supplier catalog page, which is what it's going to say at the top of the screen. It's going to say on the links. You see it looks similar, but there are some changes. One big change is that the organization of the supplier catalogs are, they're now alphabetical and the alignment's a little bit different. You have this new feature here for recently ordered. So you can click on this and see your most recent orders. And what it looks like is this page here. And you'll see up to 50 of your most recent orders. And again, going back to that supplier label, notice here that would have said vendor in today's system when you log in, but it is supplier on there. So you have this new functionality. So it's a quick way to get to your recent orders if you've got a question about those. You also have the special requests right from the main screen instead of having to go to a separate tab. You don't have to click on that tab to go to the special requests. The other thing is the requisition settings. So if you need to make changes to any of the settings that you have for an order, you can do that from this main screen as well. It's up there. I don't know if you can see my mouse. No, I don't think so. Okay. So it's up there on that top line with home, my preferences, which you can't do anything with, and then requisition settings. It has the little gear next to it. And we'll look at what that page looks like. Another change in the requisitions is the accounting lines. So they're a little more expanded. It's a little bit bigger on the screen, and you can expand or collapse them. There's the gray triangle that's next to them, next to accounting lines, so that you can expand or collapse it when you're working with that. On a requisition, so I'm in the checkout screen of a requisition here. Right now, there is a button called Modify Line /Shipping/Accounting. That is still possible, but it's much shorter now. It's called Mass Change. So that's what that green box is around that one in the middle of the screen. Works the exact same. It's just a little shorter name. One other thing, and I don't have screenshots of all this, is that in the system, there's a fair amount of links and buttons now that say like copy requisition, print requisition, edit requisition. In Connect Carolina on Monday in the upgraded, those are shortened as well. So now it's copy, print, edit, that sort of thing. So don't be thrown off. It's still the same functionality. It just looks a little bit different. One other thing that we did hear some feedback for, and just this is the way it changed, but it works the same, is down at the bottom. Currently, pre-check budget and notify are buttons. So they look just like the yellow buttons that you see on the screen below them. And they still exist in the new system. You see them right there, but they are links. And so some of the feedback that we heard from testers was it didn't really look like it was something you had to do in order to process the requisition. This is simply a look and feel thing, though. You still have to pre-check that budget before you submit that. And actually, I mean, you see here on this screen, the save and submit is grayed out until you've pre-checked the budget anyway. So just know that what you do today is what you're going to have to do on Monday when the system goes live. You're still going to have to pre-check that budget. Right now, there is a save and preview approvals. Those two functions have been split, which is the reason that I have this called out as a new functionality. The button is still there. It's just called Save for Later. So what that does is it saves your requisition and doesn't trigger it into any approvals or anything like that. It simply saves it, similar to what we just talked about with the voucher. If you want to see the approvals and see who's able to approve your requisition, there's a link to the side that's preview approvals. So you can certainly do that still. And then the requisition settings. So this is what the page looks like. It's just, you know, it just looks a little bit different, but it functions the same as it does today. All right, so we're going to move out of purchasing and we're going to move into budgets, which is kind of a backwards way to do it because really you should be budgeting before purchasing, but that's okay. We're going to move on. Save the best for last. There you go. We saved the best for last. So let's talk about what's new in budgets. So the first thing is something that got a resounding applause, I think, from a few people that have already seen this, is now you have the ability to copy a budget transfer like you do with a budget journal. So in today's system, you can copy a budget journal when you're creating a new one. On Monday, after the upgrade goes in, you'll be able to copy a budget transfer. And it works just the same as doing the journal. So when you're in that budget lines tab under process, you select copy journal. I don't know why it's called journal when it's a transfer, but we're going to let them figure that out.
Transfer is a type of journal.
Transfer is a type of journal. I learned something new. Thanks, Nicole. Mm-hmm. So the next thing, which also got some applause as well, is there's this new status that's called canceled. So if a change is made to a budget journal or transfer after it's been submitted for approvals, so if it's denied or if the originator even goes back in and needs to change the chart field string, that sort of thing, what will happen is the status in the approval header will say canceled, and you as the originator can make changes to that transaction and send it back through. You don't have to start a whole new one from scratch in order to do that. So just know that if you, or even if you send something off and you realize you need to change it, you have that capability to change that going forward. Again, this is after Monday, not today. One more not so well received thing, but something that you should know about is currently, if your budget journal or transfer fails budget checking, there's a pop-up that tells you that has happened. That functionality goes away with the upgrade. So now you need to just get in the habit of checking that budget header status to see if it's failed budget checking. And basically it'll look like this. It'll tell you that there's an error. And that'll let you know that that's what's going on. Another change, which I think the verdict's still out on whether it's good or bad in terms of what you see there, is that these descriptions for the chart fields in the budget's overview are now shown by default when you are in that screen. So if you like a clean and concise look, no worries. You can use the personalized link, which is just above those orange boxes, to hide those columns. But by default, they are going to show, and that's just the description. So this is one of those that it's not really a functionality change. It's really a look and feel change, but you have to do something if you want it to look the way that it does now. So that's why I have it listed in the new functionality category. So if you like seeing the descriptions for the chart fields that you're using, then this is for you. If you don't like seeing it, there's a way to fix it so that you can have it the way it is today. So just keep that in mind. And one other one, there's not really a screenshot for this, and this is targeted at approvers. If you're approving budget journals or budget transfers and you deny one, you now are going to be required to enter comments on that. So just keep that in mind. It's not going to let you. It's not going to let you just hit the deny button and send it back. You have to enter comments, and preferably comments about why you're denying it. Just throwing that out there. So a couple of helpful tips that we received from testers along the way. Some of the testers are on the project team. Some of this came from campus testers as they were looking at it as well. The first one is on the Manage Requisitions page. The way the system works now, when you use the clear button, it clears all of the fields that are there. In the upgraded system, when you use the clear button, it leaves the date range for the last 90 days. And that got some good feedback, actually, as well. They liked not having to go back in there and enter the dates in to do that. Another one is on the Finance Work Center. Even though it's finance, you can access PATs. You can access EPARs and commitment accounting related reports from the Finance Work Center. So those are there. You don't have to go back out and go to the HR side to get to those as well. And a third one is it's really more of a reminder, but if you're using that mass change link, which remember was the modify shipping line shipping accounting link before, be sure that the business unit is selected before you make any other changes on there. We did receive some questions from our testers during all of this leading up to the upgrade. So we want to share those with you now in case you've been wondering about some of these things as well. The first question was, will my favorites transfer when updates become effective? We already talked about that, but yes, any favorites that you have saved today will be there on Monday when you come back to work. The next one, do we have to go to Finance Work Center to start, or can we use breadcrumbs or favorites? The answer is you can still use breadcrumbs or favorites, but we tried to compile those most commonly used links into the Work Center. And really, if you've seen the new look and feel changes that are coming in the spring, if you start using the Finance Work Center now, if you're not in the habit of it, it'll make that transition a little bit easier for you because you'll just be going to that one place. Next question. Again, we've already covered this one, but I think it bears repeating. Will vendors be called suppliers in all areas of Connect Carolina? So the answer is yes and no. So all of those pages will have the label changed to suppliers. So like the vendor page will now be the supplier page. Vouchers will have supplier ID. But there are those places that won't change, like query names and attachment labels. And then somebody noticed at the bottom of the Finance Work Center, there's an Other Work Centers link, and they wanted to know what that was used for. So that is for central offices only, and it's based on the security you have in the system. So if you have access to see those pages, you will see work centers under there. If you don't see anything under there, it means you don't have access to see them. So don't stress about that. And then another question, when does the outage begin for the upgrade? So in case anybody missed that, it does begin at noon on Friday for the finance and HR payroll components. But student administration is available until 10 p.m. on Saturday night. So I don't think we can say that enough because it is outside of the norm of what we do and what we try to do. We are having to take the system offline during work hours And so we don't want anybody to be blindsided with that. So any finance HR work in Connect Carolina has to be done by noon on Friday, or it has to wait until Monday. But if you're entering grades or something like that, you can do that until Saturday evening. And now that's it. That's all I have for information for you. I'm quite sure there are some questions.
We do have a couple questions.
Okay.
Okay. So Latoya is asking, does the Save for Later create a voucher ID?
Yes, it does. So you'll have a voucher ID and you do Save for Later.
Okay. If you save a voucher for later, does the system purge it after a certain amount of time?
The answer is no, but we do purge vouchers at the end of fiscal year. So we take all the vouchers that have not been submitted sitting out there. So no matter whether it's saved or saved for later, all these vouchers that are not being processed will be purged at the end of fiscal year.
Great.
Okay, are the finance policies updated to reflect the new changes? Thinking about the how-tos and guidelines in the training modules with step-by-step screenshots. So it's kind of two questions, finance policies and training materials.
Okay, so the finance policies,
they're working on them as relevant.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So they are working on those if they're, if they need to be changed. But do remember I mentioned that they will not be changing vendor to say supplier in those policies. If it's vendor today, it's going to be vendor on Monday. And in terms of training modules and guides and that sort of thing, we are working on getting those updated. The bulk of them should be updated on CC Info by this Friday afternoon. There may be a few stragglers next week that are getting posted and updated. But yes, we are updating all of that documentation.
Okay, the question is, will there be an error or is the deny button going to be grayed out if budget, transfer, or journal is rejected?
Will there be an error if it's read that? Say it again, Chris.
Okay, will there be an error or is the deny button going to be grayed out if budget, transfer, or journal is rejected?
So no, there's no error. It just submits. It goes to a canceled status if it's rejected, and it reverts back to the originator. And the deny button, well, you would have to click the deny button in order to deny it. So I'm not sure that I follow that part, but
okay,
it's there for an approver to either approve or deny.
All right. Laura has a question. Will Infoport be available during the outage?
Yes, Infoport will be available during the outage. It will be updated through Thursday night. So what you see Friday, Saturday, Sunday
will be as of
Thursday night.
Okay. In the recently ordered section in purchase requisitions, is that based on user or by department?
That recently ordered is based on by user. So whoever is logging in, whatever requisitions they've placed is what they're going to see. It is not by department.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, well, that's all we have so far. So get to typing, people. We got some time.
And I think it's hard in some of these cases to know what questions to ask as well in terms of like what's changing and what looks different because you haven't seen it. It's a lot easier when you're in there working to be like, wait, what is this? And why is this different? So don't stress if you can't think of any questions now. You certainly don't get extra points for asking questions. But do know that we are recording this and these slides will be posted on CC Info. Actually, the slides will be posted by the end of the day today. The recording may be tomorrow before it gets up there.
Okay, we do have a question from Kathy. What do you think we will like most about this? What will help us the most?
Well, one thing I'm going to say is the look and feel maybe more user friendly, but there's a lot of things in the background that changed with the new version. As Jackie mentioned, we didn't do any upgrades after initial go live, so the processing should be faster. Any of the issues that we're seeing in terms of encumbrance, pre-encumbrance, those kind of things should get better. I'll not say that we're going to be 100%, but those things should improve.
I think from a budgeting perspective, the best change is that you now can, resubmit journals and transfers that have had changes or that have been denied. I mean, you go and you enter 20 lines and someone denies it, or you realize you need to make, a single change, and you basically, right now, that budget journal or transfer is dead, and there's nothing you can do with it. And so now to be able to resubmit that is like killer. That's a great benefit.
And actually, Chris, before you ask another question, Nicole, I do have a question. If they have journals or transfers that are in denied status now, before the upgrade, will those change to canceled and they'll be able to act on those in this similar way? Or will that be going forward starting Monday?
That is a really good question that I am not entirely sure of the answer of.
Okay.
So
Sorry.
Let's find out later Monday. I think I feel like someone on our team tested that. In fact, and I vaguely recall the conversation, but it wasn't me, and I don't recall the answer.
Okay.
So I'll see if I can find that out. Maybe we can stick that on the end of the slide or something.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
I know they're listening right now, screaming the answer at me. I hear the screams. I don't hear the answer.
Okay, Michael has a question. If we have voucher templates right now, will those still exist after the upgrade?
Yes. You're not going to lose any voucher templates for that matter. You're not going to lose any vouchers, any recs. All the data that you see as of noon on Friday is going to be there on Monday.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we have another question from Latoya. Is there an email or emails to where we can direct questions we have for things that were not covered today once we are in the live system?
Okay, so you would just contact the Business Systems Help Desk the same way you do today. So either 962-HELP or help.unc.edu for anything that's not covered or that you have questions about.
Okay, Kay has this question. Do the changes affect the layout of the printouts for vouchers and requisitions?
The printouts, one thing I'm going to say is the left alignment on the labels change to right alignment. So you may see that on the screen as well as on the printouts as well. It may print out the same way. But what you see is what's going to print unless we have some custom print jobs that are out there that we align a certain way. So really, yeah, if it's changed on the screen from 9.1 to 9.2, your printout should also reflect that change.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, in the requisition, there was a section with, in quotes, select lines to and links to add to favorites. If you have purchases you commonly make, is that what this button is for? To be able to copy the purchase line for another order?
So yeah, you can add these to favorites, or another way to copy existing requisitions, not the vendor catalog requisitions, but any special requisitions that were created in the past. You have a copy button under manage requisitions that you can use to copy. In 9.1, it's called copy requisition. Jackie, as you mentioned, in 9.2, it's called copy. It's just a relabel, but it pretty much does the same thing of copying the requisition.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we've got two questions here. First is, can we use the back button now?
I would still recommend users using the navigation, the breadcrumbs or work centers, and not the browser back button. So I think that recommendation still holds good for 9.2 as well.
Yeah, and actually we got a message from somebody on the Connect Carolina team that was pretty emphatic that says no. So go ahead and stick with that, not using the back button.
And I can tell you from someone who's trained a lot of people on this, yes, sometimes it'll work, but you'll get burned eventually and you'll be very upset because it'll kick you out or start it over. And I agree with these guys. So, okay, so also another question. Also, will there be an hourglass towards the upper right-hand side to show us that something is processing still?
The wheel.
Yeah.
You still get the spinning wheel. Yeah.
Yep.
So don't do anything while that's spinning.
Yeah. Don't keep clicking enter.
But it's not the wheel of death anymore because things are moving along more quickly.
They're moving faster. Yes.
Okay. Still got some time for some questions. So if you think of anything you'd like to ask this group of people, let us
Super
know.
knowledgeable people.
Yes. Now's your chance.
I mean, right. You have Krishna and Nicole captive and Becky.
I'm literally
Waiting.
chained in my chair right now.
Clank, clank.
I think, can you see if somebody's typing?
Not really.
Okay. It just pops up.
We just have to have faith that people are diligently coming up with clever questions to ask you.
All right. All right. Yeah.
So Jackie, what would our users do if they see something that's not working on Monday morning after the upgrades?
Same thing they would do today. So if you have issues on Monday, contact the Business Systems Help Desk, submit a ticket, let them know, and they'll be able to route it or help you out with it, that sort of thing.
Oh, we do have a question here. Will retrieving copies of deposits be easier after the upgrade?
I believe the process will be the same after the upgrade, but we can also confirm that.
Okay. All right. So while we're waiting, I'm just going to harp on this one last time. I should have done a polling question. Does everybody know when?
Yeah.
Does everybody know when the system is going down? So it's noon on Friday.
If you don't know, don't tell anybody because they'll point and laugh.
Okay, we have a question. I like the system the way it is. Why do we have to change?
So in short, because PeopleSoft is no longer the company that created the system that we're using that we call Connect Carolina. They are no longer supporting version 9.1. And in order to continue using 9.1, we would have to pay many tens of thousands of dollars to PeopleSoft just to answer questions we have when there's a bug. So it's cost prohibitive not to make the upgrade. And in addition, there are a lot of things that they have fixed with version 9.2. And so we want the benefit of those fixes. So we deal with bugs and we have issues right now that will just sort of go away when we start using this newer version of the system. And it is not a significant change in terms of the user experience that should cause anybody any angst. Do not lose sleep this weekend. This is not a switch from FRS. Okay. This is like a blip on a radar compared to what we went through a few years ago. So, this really should not cause any angst at all over the weekend.
Okay, we have one more question here. Is 9.2 the most recent version available to the university, or are there more versions?
9.2 is the most recent version. Oracle will continue to release bundles and patches. They do that in a slightly different method now, and we will be able to take advantage of those patches and bundles without such a major upgrade going forward. So we are moving to the most current version, though, as we are upgrading.
Okay, we have
And I'll just say, and because we'll be caught up, anything that happens in the future, just kind of to reiterate what Becky just said, I mean, being caught up means that changes in the future are just barely noticeable, right? So,
and as they roll out new functionality, we can apply a specific piece of new functionality without having to do a complete upgrade to the whole system. So it really does position us to be able to take advantage of what the vendor's delivering and to take advantage of fixes for things that we can't fix without doing a customization. So it really helps us be in a better position.
Okay, we have a question. Will this upgrade create changes for web travel?
No. There are no changes on the web travel, right, Becky?
Right.
Yeah.
Web travel has been tested to make sure that it integrates properly with the upgraded version of Connect Carolina, but the system itself is not being updated. The web travel is not.
All right.
Okay, now the question is there a tip sheet or some kind of, in quotes, did you know you could do this in Connect Carolina? There are so many little things to know, and it is hard to remember them all.
Like a single tip sheet, we don't have a single tip sheet because there's a lot of tips for doing things in Connect Carolina. There is a lot of information on ccinfo.unc.edu. There's a lot of reference cards for the different areas that you work in, whether it's purchasing or vouchers or budgets, that sort of thing, along with HR and some research things as well. And we do have a special webpage on CC Info about the upgrade that shows a lot of the things that we've covered today with the changes. And it's that ccinfo.unc/FIN-9-2-upgrade. Or you can hit the slider at the homepage of CC Info about the upgrade, and it'll take you to that page as well.
And there is a specific document I know on CC Info called Top 10 Tips for Purchasing. So if you're specifically interested in purchasing, that it does kind of cover them. But like Jackie said, we have other documents along there. You just kind of have to peruse the site and find what you want. Another question is, we currently get the message, you need to attach a document multiple times when processing a voucher. It's a small aggravation, but will it happen after the upgrade?
Well, we will look into it because I'm not aware that you get that message multiple times when processing a voucher about the attachment. This, to me, is a problem that we can definitely look into.
I think you get it when you save it, and then when you go to submit it, and it's just a couple of times when you do some actions where, like that, not just going field to field. That's how I remember it, but right. I think that's what he's talking about.
Okay, so if we can get an email contact or something for Michael Smith, we can contact.
I have it. So Michael, thanks for asking that. We'll check on it and follow back up, and we may need some more info from you, but we'll check on it.
Okay. People are saying wonderful, thank you. We're getting a lot of thanks. Here's another question. When entering a requisition for the purpose of a PO, special item, will that annoying going out to policy stat go away? We click special item, which should indicate we know what we are entering is over $5,000.
Yeah, so on the requisition, special requisition, right? If the amount is over 5,000, there's a requirement, it's a UNC policy that appropriate documentation needs to be attached. If there's no documentation, a message pops up saying there's no documentation and here's the policy. There's an OK and cancel button on it. So if you click on OK, it takes you to that, what Marisa is describing as an annoying message. So finance policy page. But if you click on cancel, it's not going to take you there. So the short answer is yes, we're still going to have that message and you're still going to have that OK and cancel. If you don't want to be taken to that policy page, just click on cancel when you get that pop-up message.
All right.
Great.
All right. Any more questions? Go ahead and type them in. We'll check it out. Oh, we got another one. Is the attachments only visible for 90 days policy going to change?
It's not going to change as a result of the upgrade. That is a policy that we worked with purchasing and internal audit for, and so that won't be impacted by the upgrade.
Okay, so I've got a question here, or another question. Yesterday, when trying to enter a change order to a PO, it was an endless cycle of going out to the policy page. Couldn't get out of it or make any progress. Thank goodness for the help desk.
All right.
The help desk rocks. And so, on Monday when you guys, have issues or things pop up, which are very likely not going to be 9-2 related, it'll just be related to the fact that you work at this great university. They will rock on Monday too.
All right. Okay, so I arrived a little late to the webinar, so apologies for this if it's already been addressed, but where will the recorded version of this webinar be housed and when will it be available?
It will be on CC Info. It will be on the upgrade page as well, and we'll have a slider up for the next few days on that homepage that you'll be able to click to get to the recording once it's posted. So just keep your eyes peeled on ccinfo.unc.edu, or just make it your homepage in all your browsers. That works too.
It's my homepage.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have about 8 minutes left. If we have any other questions. I'm going to go ahead and just change to the last slide. We got a couple of thanks a bunch, and thanks in particular for the budget changes. They're going to be super helpful.
Michael, I did that just for you. I talked to PeopleSoft, and they were so excited about it. So you're welcome.
So we're getting some thank yous. It looks like the questions are pretty well wrapped up at this point. If you do have questions, if you've got general questions, you can always email the help desk, helps.unc.edu. If it's a more general question about Connect Carolina, you can email cc_communications@unc.edu, and we'll get it to the right person. We're not necessarily always the right ones to answer, but we can certainly do that. If you need more information, I've talked about it a bunch, but you can go to ccinfo.unc.edu. And if you don't already receive the newsletter, there is a subscribe link on the homepage of CC Info that you can go to sign up to get the newsletter. And if you don't get the newsletter, we did have a special edition for the upgrade specific. It is posted on CC Info. If you didn't receive that a couple of weeks ago, I think right before Thanksgiving it went out. But if you didn't receive it and you want to go look at some more in-depth sort of what's changing stuff, you can find that on CC Info as well. So unless anybody has any last minute thoughts, I think we're all good. So just remember, noon on Friday, start doing non-Connect Carolina related work. Unless you're entering grades, you can still do that until 10 p.m. on Saturday. And the system will then be back online with its new look and feel on Monday when you come into work. Thanks, everyone.